Hey, what's up? It's Duskmos, and today I'm here with the Xpressor Neo Qube from Elysia. The Xpressor Neo Qube from Elysia is a 500 series unit that is housed in one of Elysia's Qube boxes, which makes them desktop friendly and really easy to just add to a desktop setup. So if you don't have a 500 series rack or a load of other sort of outboard studio gear, you could just buy this one and use it as a desktop unit. So the Xpressor Neo Qube is a dedicated compressor with threshold, attack, release, ratio, all the normal compressor settings. But there's also a sidechain filter, gain reduction limiter, gain control, and a mix, so you can do parallel compression right on board. It's got some other cool features like auto fast, which will adjust the attack based on what it's sensing, as well as this warm mode, which adds a little bit of extra harmonic distortion to add a little bit of warmth to your signal. If you followed the channel for a while, you probably saw that I raved about the character cube, and I still love that thing. I haven't been able to pick one up yet, but it's still on the short list for sure. The Xpressor Neo is an update to the previous version, and it's one of quite a few that are available in the Qube format, so it's really cool. They really expanded this range. It's really cool to see new versions of existing modules in this format come out. All right, before I hook it up and before we listen to this thing, let's go over all the knobs, controls, and the I/O on the back in the next segment. Okay, so on the left side of the Xpressor Neo Qube, you've got controls for threshold, your attack time, your release time, and your compression ratio. Threshold is basically the point in which the compressor becomes active. Attack is the amount of time it takes for that squashed, compressed level to fully sort of realize. So shorter attack times means it'll quickly reduce that level once the compressor threshold is met. And longer attack times means it takes a while after you trigger it with the threshold. It'll take a while to actually reduce the level to the point that you have set. Release is basically the opposite of attack, where it's the amount of time that it takes for the signal to return to its previous level before the compression was activated. So longer release times means it stays compressed or almost like volume down or, squashed, however you want to think about it, for longer. And then shorter release times means it'll jump back to its, uncompressed state faster. Ratio is essentially the level of the compressor in a way. The higher the ratio, the more that compression is going to take place, the more that volume is going to be reduced, and the more you'll really notice the effect. If you have it set on closer to 1-to-1, you're going to notice nothing. So yeah, it's kind of just a level. And then when you get into negative, it sort of starts to flip and it does the inverse. So instead of smashing levels, it'll actually increase. It can get pretty crazy, but that's a cool feature that's in there. SCF, or sidechain filter, is a filter that will basically let some signals through that wouldn't normally be able to slip through. So if you're smashing the kick drum in a track, the more you open up that filter, the more you'll actually allow some of that bass signal to come through. So yeah, it's just a way to reduce some of that pumping effect that happens when you're filtering sometimes. And just another way to further kind of craft what your sonic outcome is going to be. GRL, or gain reduction limiter, is the opposite, more or less, of the threshold, in that it will stop it from reducing the level by too much. So let's illustrate that real quick. So you turn up the ratio, you see this is really kind of pegging that meter there. But then when you change the GRL, you can see that actually where that's getting pegged, where it's stopping, is lesser and lesser as I increase the GRL. So that would mean, and this LED lights as well, but that would mean that I'm keeping this from reducing that level by more than I want it to, even though, it's fully maxed out otherwise, which is pretty cool. Gain is a makeup gain that will allow you to boost the signal after it's been compressed. So a lot of times when you compress, the volume will be reduced as a whole because it's bringing in those, louder moments, bringing them down, and then it's boosting the lower signals. And in doing that, sometimes you lose volume, you lose output, so you can boost that with gain. Mix does what it says on the tin. It's the blend between clean and fully compressed signal. So you get what's called parallel compression, where you actually have your clean signal and the compressed signal being blended together. And that's cool. So you can, dial in something really intense on the compressor and then back it off a little bit and just kind of dial in whatever kind of blend you're looking for between compressed and uncompressed. These switches in the middle are auto fast, log, warm, or hit it. Auto fast is basically an assistant that will adjust the attack time for you to be really quick, really responsive. If you want that, you can have an extra snappy response to the compression. Log rel, or logarithmic release, is just changing the response curve of the release on the compression to one that's more of an arc instead of a straight line, or really a 45-degree angle line. More or less, it's just another sonic option for you to choose how the release responds on the compression. Warm mode is more or less a harmonic distortion type mode that seems to have a little bit of filtering as well. And it basically just changes the overall sound character to have a little bit more warmth to it, and potentially, I guess, maybe a little bit of trimmed off higher frequencies. Not super sure about that, but that's kind of what I get from it. But I know it sounds really good. And if I own this, that would stay on all the time. And then last but not least is hit it, which is just the bypass of the whole unit. Okay, let me flip this around and we'll take a look at the ports and everything on the back. Okay, so on the back of the Xpressor Neo Qube, you've got the same cube format, outputs and inputs as you do on the other boxes, an in and an out, both on XLR balanced, TRS balanced, both on in and out. And we have two matching pairs of these because, they're just matching channels. It's cool that they have both XLR and TRS on the back, so you, again, have more flexibility in the way you hook it up, but it also makes it a little bit more desktop friendly. Just another reason why I'm a big fan of the Qubes. You've also got the 18-volt power port right here as well. And again, like I mentioned in my character cube video, this back plate is super thick, really robust. All these jacks are really high quality, and kind of same with the front. I'm obsessed with the knobs on these. Elysia knobs are just top shelf stuff. Okay, so now that you know what it is, how it works, how you connect it, let's get it hooked up and hear how it sounds. Okay, so as you can tell, I've got the Xpressor Neo Qube set up here with the Elektron Octatrack MKII coming out stereo, going into the Qube, and then out into my TX6 from Teenage Engineering, and then right out to my camera. I'm going to play some demo loops from the Octatrack through the Xpressor, and I'm just going to tweak settings and listen to how it turns out. If you've been watching the channel for any amount of time, you'll actually maybe recognize these tracks from the Octatrack because they're the same ones that I used for the Auto Machines Boom demo, and I thought that might be kind of a cool sort of callback to an old demo because that's a compressor, even though it adds quite a bit more drive and distortion, because that's definitely a little bit more of like a full-on warming unit distortion box type thing. I still think it might be a good comparison because you can hear the compression characteristics and maybe A-B it a little bit. It's not a scientific controlled experiment, one-to-one exact setup, but it's close enough, and it's something that could maybe provide a little bit extra use if you're interested. Because I've already explained what all of the knobs and everything does here, I'm not going to explain so much while I'm actually doing it, so you can just focus on the sonics, like what's actually happening inside the box, and worry less about the controls. But I will mention, as I adjust something, kind of what I'm doing, and if I make any observations, I will definitely share that as well. All right, I'll go ahead and play my clean pattern from the Octatrack, which sounds like this. And as you can tell, the VU meter is already going pretty intensely. And that's because the threshold is still is set at a position, so it's just reading that even though the unit is bypassed. That's another thing to note. I will engage and bypass this as I'm demoing, so I will call that out as well. So let's go ahead and engage it. So right away you're hearing it smashed. Because we've got the threshold set and the release, and ratio is up pretty high as well. So we can back down the ratio. You'll hear less compression, and you'll see that reflected as well in the VU meter. I'm going to bring it back up though. Also, if you'll notice, mix is fully wet here, so I can blend in the clean. Let me get the best of both worlds, do some parallel compression. Fully clean, fully wet. I'm gonna leave it fully wet for now. I'm gonna lower the threshold. And also reduce the ratio. And I'll mix in a little more of the clean. Notice I'm going to bypass now. So you can hear some gentle compression, I'd say. Although I like it pretty extreme because, you know, why not? I say if you're going for it. I'm going to go fully wet now again. Change the threshold as well. So you see you're getting no compression, a little bit there. Or a lot. Extend the release time. I'm going to bypass. So you really hear those claps again, pretty loud in the mix. And once compressed, pulls it right back down. So engage logarithmic mode. You can hear the curve changes a little bit. It's not the easiest to spot on a full mix. Bypass. Re-engaged. So you can play with the sidechain filter. Things get a little bit more interesting. You can lower the attack speed, but up the release. Lower the attack to really short so we can see it jump on those kicks. Up the gain a little bit more. Undo logarithmic mode. Random engage warm mode. Blade it a little more to clean. I'll bypass the whole thing and we'll do a quick A/B. And re-engaged. Up the ratio to just crazy amounts. I'm using the gain reduction limiter, which is cool. It's kind of like the reverse of the threshold, so it only allows you to take off so much, reduce, compress so much, which is kind of cool. Go to auto fast mode. Turn off warm mode. Bypass. And re-engaged. So I'm going to blend in some of the clean again. Really short release. going to really amp up the ratio. And you can push into just a complete wacky, distorted kind of mode if you want. Just kind of abusing it though. But it adds some sonic character. Probably not recommended though, but it's cool to explore. Turn off auto fast. So really you can see it's just reacting to the claps more or less. I guess the claps and the kicks. Some really dramatic stuff. Logarithmic. Which is a bit smoother. It kind of smooths the edges from the linear response. And bypassed. And re-engaged. All right, and I'll stop there with this first pattern, and we'll try the next one. Okay, so now we're all set up with the Xpressor Neo Qube and the Octatrack with pattern 2 ready to go. Clean, this is what this one sounds like.
Signal.
So you can really hear the levels are all over the place.
Signal.
So let's see if we can tame them a bit with the Expressor. So go ahead and engage it. So it's not doing much right now because it's where it's set. So let's get it going. It is fully wet, so none of the clean is coming through. So already, this really snappy response is really trimming those peaks. You can really see it. Go ahead and bypass.
Signal.
Yeah, way smoother. Speaking of, let's go ahead and engage the logarithmic.
Signal.
Yeah, like that alone right there is a pretty great setting for this. Blend in some of the clean. Kind of bring a little bit of those dynamics back.
Signal.
Okay, I'll bypass. Re-engaged. Let's try warm mode. Turn up the gain a little bit.
Signal.
Change up the release time as well.
Signal.
And adjust the attack time also.
Signal.
See what this sounds like bypassed?
Signal.
So here you can really hear it bring up the synth note in the background. Listen for that.
Signal.
So bypassed, the drums are definitely the most present. And then you engage, and it's doing what it's supposed to do, bringing everything kind of closer to the middle. I'm going to make some adjustments here and just see what we get.
Signal.
So now it's really smashing the drums.
Signal.
So here's interesting because you really hear it bringing up
Signal.
that the reverb. You can blend in some of the clean.
Signal.
And that's kind of cool. It just brings emphasis to that other layer of the music.
Signal. Signal.
Back to fully wet now. Go to auto fast.
Signal.
So you can hear more of the
Signal.
kick is coming through. And less as I reduce.
Signal.
Tweak the gain reduction limiter. You can see the little LED lights when that's active.
Signal.
Now we're in negative ratios.
Signal.
A little bit too much of that kick was coming through.
Signal.
Lower the ratio. Let's drop the gain down a little bit. And we'll bypass.
Signal.
Definitely a big difference. I'm going to bypass again.
Signal.
And ironically, the peak volume coming out of this when it's bypassed is higher on my meters, on my mixer, than when I engage it. But it sounds louder, but that's just like a perceived volume because the compression is bringing everything where there aren't as many extremes, but it brings everything up kind of in general.
Signal.
Back to linear mode.
Signal.
And bypassed. Re-engaged.
Signal.
And I'm gonna turn off warm mode.
Signal.
And bypass. And there we go. That is the Xpressor Neo in the Qube format. Really awesome compressor. Just a pleasure to use. I like the visual feedback that you get from the meter. And yeah, warm mode sounds really cool. Yeah, I like what I hear. Okay, so what are my thoughts on the Xpressor Neo Qube? I think, just without messing around, I think it sounds great. It's got all the high-end audio circuitry to make this thing compete with some of the nicest gear out there, and yet it's still small and portable and desktop friendly, and yeah, it just sounds really punchy and dynamic, and it's clean. It's also a little dirty if you want it to be. I like the warm mode, of course. I think that sounds really nice. Adds a little bit of that warmth, a little more character maybe, and it just, at least for me, it kind of trims off a little bit of that digital edge, and that's another thing that's great about this being all analog circuitry, in that it definitely does that as well. It processes digital audio in a way that kind of brings it back a little bit, gives a little bit more life and character and movement. Obviously, when you're doing some compression, you can not only just like level out signals, but you can also accentuate some frequency ranges a little more than others if you wanted to, and use that to great effect. Feature-wise, I can't think of what else you might want out of a compressor. I mean, it's stereo. It's got the normal, threshold, attack, release, ratio controls. Adding the sidechain filter and the gain reduction is really cool. That's a feature that I feel like I haven't seen much. Granted, I haven't done a ton of research on competing compressors in the whole landscape of audio production, but that seems like a pretty unique feature. Of course, being able to blend with the mix knob in and out between, the fully clean or compressed is cool. You get that parallel compression thing going, and again, just more flexibility, more freedom to sculpt your sound. This is kind of a funny thing to praise, but the responsiveness of the VU meter is lightning fast. And I feel like that is really great because it's the only real visual indicator you get as to what's going on. And I find that when I'm trying to dial everything in, you can really use that to make sure that what is happening, or what you think is happening. And that's just a nice thing. If you watched my Character Qube review, you've heard me say this before. I'll say it again. Build quality is just crazy insane. Really, really pleased with the just experience of using these boxes. And interestingly, on the Neo version of this, they've changed up the knobs a little bit. They still feel really, really nice, really smooth, really high-end premium. There's good resistance and everything. The finish is just a little bit different, but I think it feels just as good, if not maybe a little better. The old version was kind of bead blasted in a way that made it feel almost a little bit like it had like a soft touch coating on it, which was cool. But these just feel like you're a little bit closer to the metal, which for whatever that's worth, I think it feels nice in hand. And yeah, I mean, you gotta enjoy using the tools or you're not having a good time. And I appreciate that they appreciate that. Price-wise, I think this is in the ballpark of what makes sense for the quality that you're getting here, the sonics that you're getting here, the components, obviously build, everything. Yeah, I think it's competitive, and that's pretty cool. It's obviously pricier than pedal compressors or, anything that's not pro audio level. But I think for the range that this is, competing, I think this is a good value. Like all things Elysia, though, I enjoy that tactility, hands-on, audio quality. I mean, there's not much else you can ask for besides the function, and this one just happens to be a compressor. So whether you're looking for, like the character, you want a little bit of a character box, or you want compression, or you need some mic channels, there are options out there for you in this format. And I think if you're looking to, kind of step your game up a little bit, and have some higher end, but still desktop producer friendly pieces of gear, I think this is definitely a great choice for compression. All right, well, that's going to be it from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.